Medic! Welcome back to the Medic Up podcast. Here's part 2 of Mr. Joe Connelly sitting down with us, talking about his work he does with NYC Medics, the relief organization that responds to worldwide disasters. Don't forget to check out in the show notes our sponsors, Fuel the Machine Apparel, www.fuelthemachineapparel.com, and Medical Gear Outfitters, www.medicalgearoutfitters.com. Remember, free shipping at Medical Gear Outfitters, and there's a link in the show notes. It's going to get you 10% off your order. These guys are great enough to sponsor us, so if you're looking for customized first aid kits or ready-built first aid kits, Medical Gear Outfitters has you covered. And if you're looking for cool t-shirts to rep part of the lifestyle, for EMS, they're tasteful, they look awesome. Like I said, Uberlance is my favorite. Check out fuelthemachineapparel.com. Check out the show notes for the links. Go check them out. Thanks for listening, guys. Not to switch gears, I'm absolutely excited about that. Can I switch gears a little bit to NYC Medics? Can we talk about that real quick?
Yeah.
Awesome. And while I was busily stalking the internet, combing the internet for contact information for you, your name had come up about NYC Medics and the relief stuff that you guys do. And it had, I think I found the story from maybe Syria. Did you guys go?
From Iraq.
Okay,
we were in Iraq, 2017. Right, yeah. I wrote a piece for EMS World.
Okay. And can you tell us about that, or the history of, I know it started back in 05, 06 maybe. Am I off a couple years? It was after maybe Typhoon or something?
Yeah. Yeah, I was still paramedic in New York. And we had actually tried to go to Katrina and couldn't. They had sort of stopped relief workers, aid workers, or anybody from volunteering as FEMA took over. And I remember we were disappointed about that. And then this other guy who worked in New York, I didn't really know at the time, but he was coming around looking for people who were interested in going to Pakistan, which after this earthquake in 2005, there was something like 70,000 people died. And I just remember it was in almost the same year as Katrina, and then just before that was that big tsunami. And we said, sure. And somehow we pulled it off. That first trip was just about calling, and we got plane tickets. We got all these donations of materials and stuff, and we ended up jumping on this plane and with just ragtag collection of 12, mostly New Yorkers, knuckleheads as we called ourselves, and we got to Islamabad in the capital, and it was all choked off, and we were supposed to go to work in this clinic, and we bribed this Navy pilot, I remember, with a bottle of Grey Goose, to take us to this clinic, but he ended up taking us, 10, 20 miles above that, where no one had been to yet, and we were dropped off. The helicopter took off, and this bunch of Pakistani army soldiers walking towards us with their guns pointed at us, saying, "What are you doing here?" And we just set up a little clinic, in this little broken down house, and we started working, and people were bringing us their patients from miles away on homemade litters. And so we just started hiking up to where they were coming from. We'd set up clinics, and then we'd keep moving up. And near the end of that month, this group from 60 Minutes came, and they ended up doing a story about us. And it came out, and it was a big hit. There was all these donations came pouring in, even before we had an official organization or even a name yet. And that's how it started. And then, we've been Haiti and Nepal and the Philippines, and then this this opportunity to set up a Trauma Stabilization Point in Iraq during the Battle of Mosul, which was raging the end of 2016 and 2017, in which the Iraqi army was trying to push ISIS out of northern and western Iraq. And the WHO, World Health Organization, was looking for any group that was willing to send teams out to establish these trauma stabilization points, because they were losing so many soldiers and civilians in these ambulance rides that weren't well equipped, and worst off were often directed to places that couldn't handle them. So a big part of what we did there was to, stabilize the soldiers and civilians very close to the front line, and then direct them to a place that could handle them.
And you guys are just out there doing it. Like and even from the start, even up until that point in Mosul, I would assume that people kind of changed, like in that original thing in the Pakistani earthquake. It's just, 12 people. Did anybody have like austere medical training, prior military, or were they just like, hey, I want to help?
Pretty much. I mean, the first couple of teams were mostly groups of people who had been on the disasters before. But eventually, we got brought in a wider pool of medics and PAs and doctors, surgeons from all over the country, even all over the world, and we still have that name NYC Medics, but it is a wide range of healthcare workers, great people. Right now we're trying to establish a similar thing in Yemen, both a TSP as well as that triage service, and also education. So helping to train EMS services. We have a proposal in Yemen that I think is going to happen. There's been proposals. They're still up in Turkey and Central America. We'll see what happens next.
That's great. So it's 100% full on NGO organization type thing, and now you're going to have that worldwide reach, that's great. I don't know. So speaking on the civilian medic side, NYC EMS in the 90s, rural EMS now, any parallels to, I would assume being an NGO in a war zone is probably just as helpless as being the only medic in the middle of the Adirondacks waiting for some transport on a cardiac arrest. Like, it's that very helpless feeling, or does it kind of one of those things where, it's overwhelming when you get there, like responding to a disaster, and then by day 3, you kind of have your work rest cycle and you're kind of used to the smells and the sights and the sounds, or am I off the mark?
Yeah. I would say New York City was the most helpless in those days, in which it just seemed never ending, like there was no relief in sight. But for me, working on a TSP in which you just got 15 minutes to get a lining, get some pain meds in, get some antibiotics in, you just keep moving, and you can see the results of the difference you're making for these people. And I would say working in the rural EMS, sometimes, sure, you're on the scene and you're alone and no help is coming, but I don't know, I kind of sometimes like that, because you can make a difference, you can make a real change in the people, and you often know the person, or you know the family, and your help, is going to reach the patient and the family and the town.
As far as doing the TSP stuff, do you guys see a lot? And I'm asking because I do a lot of, maybe not a lot, but tactical medical education on like stop the bleed and tactical emergency casualty care, stuff like that. Did you guys see a lot of tourniquets doing their jobs?
Some failures too, and some one of the first guys brought in had a poorly applied tourniquet and ended up dying as he was brought in. It was just really interesting to see so many gunshot wounds and just learning how to pack a wound, keep the pressure on, stable amount of fluid, but really not too much fluid. In New York City, I probably for a time there was doing a gunshot almost every night, but this was different. These are big caliber bullets for the most part, and also the trauma care has expanded so much. It's much more. I think it works.
Right. I mean, it's that, we always kind of tell everybody, we've all known, a lot of most, if not all, of our EMS techniques really come as an evolution from war zones or prior wars. Everybody uses mask trousers as the example, like, they were used in Vietnam, and then we had them on the trucks, and now they're gone. And you have people like me who go, they'll come back, they'll be called something different when we really start to study them, saying these are beneficial, or there's a facet of them beneficial. Tourniquets for years, don't put them on, you'll lose the limb. Commercial tourniquets come out, and now it's properly applied tourniquets first. We can keep them on 6, 8, 14 hours, and all of a sudden, advances in microsurgery, advances in reperfusion and trauma care. Now, how many years did we put 2 large bore IVs and run them wide open on our trauma patients? And now we say, hey, whole blood is the way to go, or, low titer O positive is the way to go, or fresh frozen plasma. So it's good. I mean, I hate that it has to come from conflict, but I'm glad that we're looking at it to further, our trauma care or our EMS care that we can translate into the field and through evidence-based medicine, and that there's people out there, even in those areas, that are watching it and can say, even anecdotally, like, yeah, I saw this, it was poorly applied, and, it contributed to the death. And you guys turn around and say, let's do the education. Let's get some education out there in the different areas of the world. Maybe we can decrease the incidence of that happening. So it's great. You guys are doing some full circle stuff there, and it's absolutely beneficial. I think it's my opinion, but I think there's probably people having tourniquets applied in war zones that agree. So
every trip I've been on is life changing. I can't say enough about the experience of going to a foreign place, and especially a place like Iraq or Pakistan. There's so many stories about these places, but we really don't know until you meet a lot of these people and you realize, they are like us in many ways, and in a lot of ways, so grateful.
How hard is it? Maybe that'll probably come out wrong. How hard is it to do that on a volunteer basis? Like it makes me sound like such a bad person. It's very hard for me to understand how I can put my life and my family kind of on hold to say I'm going to be gone for about 15 to 30 days to go volunteer. Is it? Oh man, it's hard to articulate that, I guess, for me. Like how do you do it? Like, I mean, I understand why you do it. I understand why we want to do it. We want to help. It's in our nature. You want to be part of something bigger. Those are easy, but just the financial end of it, when you have so many medics who live paycheck to paycheck, or
I know,
have other stuff going on. Like, is there? And they're usually not-for-profit organizations or NGOs. I mean, it's not like they're not going to, we'll subsidize your pay. How much were you making? I was a medic in California. I'm making $92,000 a year. Figure it out. Versus the medic in South Carolina who's making $42,000 a year. 2 weeks of pay versus 2 weeks of pay in California are a big difference. I mean, it's, how does that kind of go?
Yeah. well, like I said, and especially too, like in Mosul, you get there and we're up in the mountains in the north, and it was below freezing at night, and there's no heat, and we're having to light fires outside, to try and stay warm, and the howitzers are blasting, shaking the windows, pushing the clothes right against your skin, and there was a grenade landed just down the road from us, and but again, every time I've gone, I can't say enough about the rewards. Not financial, obviously, but in every other way. And they can't, doing that TSP in Iraq and each trip I've gone on, it revives me, makes it easier and makes me better when I come back.
That's great. That's that typical help others and you help yourself type, I think, mentality that a lot of EMS people have, or a lot of healthcare workers in general, I think, have. So, it's great. I think it's great. When I read the story, I saw the picture in Gems. I was like, that's the same Joe Connelly who wrote the book. And then it said, referenced it. I was like, man, that's really cool. To just have it continue that career and, see the progression of what you've been through for, last almost coming up, almost 30 plus years. Yes. Somewhere close to that.
31. Yeah. Unbelievable. I know, and we're all working 2 jobs. But I also have to tell you that I had the best group of guys and women in New York City. And it was that first trip we went on, it was most of those people who I'd already worked with, and we had already been through so much together. It was amazing.
Yeah, that definitely makes it probably a little bit easier on the brain, realizing that, again, middle of a war zone, completely dependent on foreign military to keep you safe, and not really knowing when this stream of patients is going to come in, or my donated supplies are going to be in short supply or run out, and I think that's in my head. I can't. It's way harder for me to relate to it all. But I'm glad there's people out there doing it. So very cool. And you guys have, I think, in fact, I don't know if it ever made it to you or if it was because I actually went through the Twitter page for NYC Medics. It was like, this sounds weird. Maybe you can give me his contact info. Like I'm some random person. They're like, yeah, we're not going to give it to you, but we'll let him know you're looking for him. I was like, okay.
Oh, right.
I was like, oh, great. I was like, thanks, guys. But and I started when I was, again, looking through research and reading about, how it expanded since it started. I think it's a great organization. And then, connecting the dots through the GEMS article and seeing how you guys kind of were leapfrogging with the 2 teams that were coming in on alternate months. I was like, man, they're really going to some faraway places that, I hear a lot of other, maybe not a lot of, I follow the Global Medical Surgical Group on their Instagram, and those are a lot of prior military service guys, and those are from the tactical medical side of it, seeing what they do. Sure. And I was like, wow, here's the civilian group who is doing the same type of work, and they're getting out there, they're doing it. And then I'm sure there's a plethora of other NGOs out there doing it, but it was really cool to have that kind of relation and see some civilian medics out there doing a good job and really going into harm's way and doing what they needed to do. So
I can't say I was so lucky to be in that right place at that right time, to get on that first trip and to be a co-founder of the group. Yeah.
Absolutely. You guys are doing good work, so keep it up. What else? Anything else you got before I find a weird way to wrap this up?
No, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Man, I really appreciate
it. Hopefully we'll see that 3rd book out with next year. I'm thinking early next year. That's my goal.
All right. Well, we'll definitely have you back on, and or before then, or we'll find something cool to talk about. You're one of the most laid back people I've ever talked to. I got that New York accent, the medic attitude, but you sound super laid back, and people are going to think I made you up. So.
Well, I'm in Newcomb, New York, which is a population of about 250, and I do about 1 call a month.
I'm signing up. I'm signing up to come run with you. One call a month. I'd be all over it.
Yeah. No, it's a kind of, I guess you'd call it a retirement shift.
It's all right. Everybody needs that, man. Everybody needs it. Well, good, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for what you do. I love the way you write. I'm absolutely good. Crumtown is on my list. It's on my short list. Your second book, and absolutely the new one. And I'll find an address for you someday. I'll probably send it to the fire department. Maybe sign my copy of Bringing Out the Dead. Maybe.
Oh, sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, you got it, Chris.
Awesome,
nice talking.
Man. Great talking to you.
All right.
All right, man.
Bye-bye.
See ya.